Well, you can see I've tidied up all this stub axle here, the rear left-hand rear axle. I've put the seal in the housing here and put a bit of grease on it to look after it. I've put the inside bearing in ready to go, so I can slide this down gently, and gently is what has to happen, because there is sharp splines down in the guts there that we don't want to have a look at, so that'll be okay anyway. So now this bearing here, it has to come down in on the top. We'll give that a bit of a bump down with our punt. So that's down below. You can see, bring over a bit maybe. Yeah. You can see there's a fat piece here, so the spline comes down, then there's a raised section. Then on the bottom, it'll be a, I'll show you what we're looking to do. There's a couple of rings here that come down behind the bearing, they back onto the bearing, so that the bearing or the axle can never slide out of the bearing. So and at this stage one can go in, so that will be near enough, because once we put this on we'll bring it back down against them. So there is a, you can see the marks on the back there, you can see the spline marks on the top, and see there's a curve, there's a radius, so the radius went up in this instance. So what I would like to do is, I want to put a bit of grease on those collars, so when we're banging around here, we're not going to dislodge them. So the grease will hold them into place for us. That should hold it where we need it. Now I wonder, you can see under here, you can see that collar there, that sits down over those collars. There we go. Yeah, and look, what I'll have to do, I'll have to put all, and I was just fitting that then to see I have to put these gears in, but I also have to get to the back end of the shafts as well, so I'll have to assemble this before we put it in, so which is no worries. I just had to work out if I had to do that or not. So with this section here, the Planet carrier, these circlips, well I suppose I should explain, these gears sit on the shafts like that in the housing here, and I've replaced these circlips because the circlips that were on it, and I did leave some here to show you. You can see they're curled out just from the pressure, so they can go in the bin right now. Now we have some thrust washers here. Now these thrust washers, you can feel that worn side there, and you can actually feel that with your nail. You can see where it runs there, and there's nothing wrong with turning these over. So you have a worn side, there's nothing wrong with turning them over and having the good side to the gear, so popping them in like that, nothing wrong with that at all. So which is what we're going to do now. I don't believe there's a right or a wrong way, but there's a tiny little mark on this gear here, and there's one on the other, so I'm just not sure how that should be. But anyway, we'll work away with it. And the gears are good. There's a couple of little marks on, where is it? On one of them here. It's that bad I can't find it to show you. But by the time the shafts are okay. By the time I have shafts, Sparex make new needle roller bearings, S42070s. So by the time we turn the thrust over, put new bearings in, new needle bearings, we should be okay. So, and it'll help straighten the gears up. Like if they were with the worn rollers, if the gear was cocked over like that a little bit. And the wear I saw was just on one side, one end. So if the wear was there, I'm going to put that little C mark up so it can be seen. So if the gear was cocked over, by putting new bearings on a good shaft, that should straighten it all up. So instead of running on the bottom side of your gear there, it'll bring the main running area into the middle once more. So, but what I need is a bit of grease. You know I love a bit of grease. Doesn't matter if it's bacon grease. Fat, bit of fat. So all I want to do now is fill this cavity here with rollers. Bit of grease on your finger works wonders. I remember waiting for these needles, took bloody ages to get here. Sparex had so many, you've got to buy them in packets of 25, or packets of 60. But it has, there's something that they've done there where you can't buy the exact number you want. You had to buy the extra bag, so they sell you a couple more spare parts and make a fortune out of those 3 needles. A lot of businesses are going like that now, aren't they? Quantity buys, like you want to buy an O-ring and they'd like to sell you 10, a packet of 10, not just one. That's how they keep their sales up. Does that feel good in there? I think it does. Now in my box of spares here, now between the, you can see this mark there, so there was a little spacer there keeping the rollers apart. So we're going to pop that in. And we don't need a spacer on the outside because we have these thrust washers holding them all in there. So might be able to see it better if I put it up here. Yeah, that's good. And you can see if we put the thrust washer there, they can't slide out the back and get lost on us. So once again we'll tip a heap of bearings out here. With the shaft in. It's a little bit fiddly, but that's okay. I've been a couple of days on this final drive because I'm restoring the tractor. I've cleaned all the paint off the housings and fiddled around. I attracting stuff about. See if I can just push them all around there together to straighten them up. I should have counted them really, shouldn't I? Perhaps we can count them when we're finished. So what we're looking for now is make sure there's no gaps. You reckon we can count them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, so 29 or 30, and there's 60 in a pack. I've got one left. Well, there we go. So, what we do now, we pull this out without buggering the whole show up. We put the thrust washer in, so it lines up with the hole. Did I have 2 thrust washers here? Go on, you can tell me. So here's one I prepared earlier. A bit of grease there, a bit of grease on the back to hold this top one in place. You can see too that there's a narrow edge and a wide edge. The wide edge goes to the inside here. And if I'm bloody half as smart as I think I am, there's a little mark. I should be able to slide that in there. Line that up with my finger. I think I've dropped the needle here. Now it is the bottom one. There we go, now we're cooking. Put this in there. Right way around. Hang on, there's a bloody slippery hammer, she'll go flying across the road. Bloody hit the dog. So I'll set that down there to support that. Grab one of my new circuits that I've been skiting about. Now the circlips, they get stamped out, so they get stamped one way, and you'll see a rounded edge at the back here and a sharp edge at the front. So we want the round edge to the housing and the sharp edge to bite into the groove at the front here. So we'll pop this on. There we go. So that feels good. Okay, I'll turn off for a minute. You don't need to watch me mumble and carry on about doing this back one. When I've got that one finished, we'll come back and we'll slide it on and start assembling up through the shaft here. There's a circlip groove there. So if that circlip sits in that groove nicely, once again the round side down. See if it sits in there nicely, well we know we're home and nothing can come out. And there we go. Oh, just getting heavy now. So yeah, you can see the snap ring in there, so this housing here can't go anywhere now. Like the shaft, there's a bearing supporting it at the back there, and we can probably pop this down a little bit now just to let it sit back on that snap ring. So if I give this a bit of a so that should make sure that the bearing's sitting all the way home. See if there's a little bit of pressure on this. Yep, there's a little bit of pressure on that snap ring there now. So we can keep on going. So the first cab off the rank inside there is a spacer. Now this spacer, gee, it's bloody slippery from the honeymooner's bloody elbow. Yeah, so we have a collar there, and you can see a chamfer that goes down. And the reason that goes down is because the machined mark, the machined radius on the axle there is, can you see that? Yeah, I think you can. So I might just pop a little bit of oil on that to get it down where I need it to be. So he goes down first. You know, when I was doing a test fit just to make sure everything was good, and that bloody thing fell on. There we go. So that sits down there, and then we have a thrust washer that sits down against that, and we have a needle bearing here, and it rides against there. So I'd like to put a bit of grease, work a bit of grease in it. Now these final drives, they have like EP 85 140, a very heavy oil in them, and not much of it. And look, a little bit of grease is just not going to matter. So that goes like that. Then we're back to stacking needles. So anyway, so next on there, against the needles, against those bearings, is this fella here. The only place I could buy this at the time was at Quality Tractor Parts in Ireland. I wonder. So their part number is 61881. Once again, Queensland Tractor Spares in there. So now I have to check. Yeah, so once again we have a spacer to go halfway to sit down in there, and these needle bearings, they sit up against the shoulder down here. Then there's a shoulder, there's one of these in the middle, and then up the end here there's a snap ring, that stops this from coming out. So once again, let's have a go and do some needle bearings. Well, you can see here I've got this together. Now look, it is hours later, and I couldn't quite work out what was going on, but I have got to the bottom of it. So I was wondering, like I couldn't fit all the needles in and it was too tight here, so I fiddled around and ended up measuring things, and I even got the old cone here back out, and the new cone there is the same measurement, so that's good. Quality Tractor Parts have done their job. But the S42147, that fellow there, where 42147, they're shit, throw them away. They're oversized, so they're just fat enough that you can't get the full complement of needles in there. And the old needles weren't bad, I was just putting them in. I thought, oh yeah, I'll get them, buddy, put them in, and no marks on them. But yeah, these needle rollers that I put in, they're too fat, and once you started to get the full complement in, well, you couldn't turn it, it just jammed up. The other thing I did wrong when I videoed it before, I just started putting the needles. So when you have your thrust bearing here and you start putting the needles in, you should have one of those spacers first, then your needles, then a spacer, then your needles, and then this top spacer here. And they should run up against this fella here. Now, originally this had this little ring there in, and I've chose to put another snap ring in there, and so you can see that once that's sitting there right, you have a full complement of rollers in there. It's full all the way. You can't fit any more in there. The whole thing is turning freely. And I'll turn that back around, that'll get them sitting down where I want it. And this washer, it sits down against the needles there. I'll just bump them down a little bit. Then feel for the sharp side of the circlip, have the sharp side of the circlip up. And there you go. That's in the groove nicely, that's turning nicely. So now, that might do for assembling this little section of it. And we'll start another video and I'll drop this on and we'll work out how to adjust our end float and everything. So we have new parts here. It did have a couple of shims in it. I thought it had a couple of shims in it originally, but what we're going to do is we're going to, instead of putting the cork gaskets in here, we're just going to assemble it with no gaskets and see what end float we got, and then we can slide all this piece out again and put shims in behind here so that it takes out any end play in the axle. So there you go, that's assembling this little piece, the planetary section. Yeah, we'll come back a bit later once I've got it all sitting ready to measure.